And so I want to talk about defensive IQ because it's kind of a topic that kind of gets sprung around, and defensive IQ is such a big thing, right? And so I want to help you guys understand this concept of someone's comfort zone. So let's say this bar is my comfort zone, right? And if I'm playing offense and you're playing defense, you might play me in such a way that I feel really comfortable. And so our goal as a defense is to get this offensive player to feel less and less comfortable, right? We want them to push them out of their comfort zone into this is our zone, right? And this is where we want to take them. And this is where we're cooking, and this is where we're in control. All right. And so the way we're going to do this by taking them out of their comfort zone and then into our zone where we can cook and we're in control defensively is through 1% wins. So what does that mean to you guys? What does it sound like when I'm talking about 1% wins? I'm keen to get you guys involved in this discussion as well. And I know, Matt, we talked a little bit about this in separate calls, and Mark as well.
Well,
Matt, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll chime in. I guess like to me, when I first heard about 1% wins, it was just like what would be the small things you can do on the field that will at least give you that bit of an advantage. When I first heard, yeah, that's what I think about
Yeah,
those 1%ers.
that's great. Cheetah, Mark, Jason, anything you guys anything that comes to mind when we think 1% wins or ways that we can get someone out of their comfort zone?
This is my first time hearing the concept, but something that comes to mind is a lot like when if they have like disc centered and it's like a force flick or whatever, a lot of times like whoever's like on the like force side reset will like just enter the lane and try and force them to swing.
Love that. Okay. And so the idea is we want to take them out of plan A and we want to take them into our territory. Plan B, plan C, plan D. All right. And we're going to do that through getting our 1% wins. And so one way you can think about, and this is more of a framework on what you guys can do on the field to find these little 1%ers by yourself. And this is to shift our framework and think, all right, if I was the offense, what would I want? Right. And so in your example, Cheetah, essentially we're saying, all right, this is our offensive and this is the disc, right? It's like, oh, I just want to throw this open pass. Right. And so what does the offense want? And then how can we get them out of plan B? Well, an easy way is to just jump into that lane and then stop that and force them to go to plan B. Right. Now, this is an excellent segue into one tool that I think you guys can use that will kind of take this tactic, but then push it to steroids, or kind of put this tactic on steroids. And that's the idea of a switcheroo. And so, Matt, I know we talked about this in a bit of detail in a previous one-on-one call, but would you mind kind of sharing with the group what your take on what the switcheroo means?
Yeah. So my understanding, or even my understanding of what a switcheroo might look like in terms of defense is this idea that as I feel like as a point is like kind of going on, or I feel like the best scenario is even when like maybe you're on defense and the offense is getting set and they're picking up the disc, right? They're walking up to the disc and getting ready. Is when you're on that off, or when you're playing defense in that under space, in the last second, switching where you are actually applying pressure, or even where you're applying your mark on defense. So, if it's, let's say I have red as defense here, they're marking under, and a switcheroo might look like at the last second, just before the disc is being tapped in, switching to forcing them under. Yeah, sort of a way to kind of get the offense a little bit uncomfortable, or just at least thinking more.
Yeah, that's a great example, Matt. And it's the idea is like, imagine we have this bricked pool, right? And this O player is walking it to the brick mark. And then if we're this defense, just as what you're saying, Matt, and if we're just setting up on the under, this is already a problem that the offense is comfortable solving, right? The offense is, if we're talking about the kind of comfort zone, they're right here. They're super, super comfortable. This is their zone because they're not feeling any sort of pressure because this is a problem that they know that they can solve, i.e. they have a plan that they're just going to maybe take you out deep and then come straight back under, right? And so they're ready to solve this problem. And so we're thinking, all right, how can we get those 1% wins to kind of get them out of their comfort zone and into our zone? Is let's see if we can, last second, as this disc is coming in, we're going to show one. So we're going to show the front, show the under. And then as the disc is coming in, they're ready to execute their game plan, right? Which is out and in, whatever. All of a sudden, we take the other hip. They think that they can take this now because they're kind of thinking on the fly. We've got Wilson joining the room. And then that's when we can kind of come in and then we're more ready for that scenario than they are. And so that's one way that we can execute the switcheroo. But this is a tactic that you can do in every kind of scenario. Okay. So even in your scenario, Cheetah, the first option is we can stand in this lane, right? And we can prevent this pass. But what can we do when this person realizes there's a poach and that they want to hit this? What can we do to make that even more difficult for the offense?
Would just be like jumping back onto your guy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so the idea is we can flash in this lane for even a second, right? And this person's thinking, so this is the thought process. I want to take this option. Wait, this person's just flashed. That means I should take this option. Wait, they're back where they are. Okay, I need to look downfield again. And all of a sudden, that's already 3-4 seconds in the stall. That is a 1% win for us to get a higher chance in generating something. The idea is Frisbee is kind of a figured out game. The offense, and you can see it in like, when truck stop plays, it's like, well, they just run a side stack and they're just going to get the disc. And it's already a very easy problem for them to solve. And so as a defense, in all these little micro scenarios, we want to see where we can get those 1% wins to take the offense off their game and into our realm, right? Take them out of their comfort zone and then into our realm where we're in control and where we're cooking. And so I want you to open up your mind, forget your assumptions, because there's so many scenarios where this can come up in a game. So for example, let's say this person's bringing in the pull. You might be setting up on this side of the disc to start, and then last second you switch the force onto the flick, right? Another way is we might flash our body right in the middle of the lane in front of them, almost forget about the force for a second, and then jump right back on the force, right? So these are little micro wins that we can do. Like if we're orbiting in the stack, right? Let's say we're on this player. We might just hold this fronting stance, but then last second, on a random moment, we might orbit and flip to backing, or flip to the break side, or flip to right underneath, right? These are all 1% wins that are going to take the offense out of the comfort zone and think, oh shit, did Cheetah really just start open side and then take a second, go break side, and then go back to the open side? Why did he do that? Does that mean if I cut break side, then he's actually going to be ready for it? So that just adds another spanner in the works on what the offense is thinking. And those are all the 1% wins that we want to be able to take them out of their comfort zone for us to win defensively. Any questions from that perspective on defensive IQ? Pretty straightforward. Any thoughts, feelings, reflections? Have we thought about the game like this before?
No, but I mean, it makes sense because like a lot of especially like newer cutters are like very they have like a predetermined set route, right? So like they like when they come up to they come up to like the whole stack or the reverse stack. I think okay, I'm gonna fake deep and then I'm gonna cut in, or I'm gonna cut they don't know how to think on the fly. So I think it could trip up a lot of players, and they're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and the example was like I had this scenario on Tuesday night where I was defending Mark Wee, one of like the Australian dingoes. And he was in the horror, and I really wanted to stop his under because I know he's a good thrower. So I wanted to stop under. But he just kept spamming this deep cut. And I kept holding this under spot. And so after like 3 cuts, eventually someone got power position and he just got the huck deep and I had no pressure. And so I thought, like, what could I be doing better? Well, I should be applying the switcheroo concept. Instead of just holding this fronting, right, where he has seen this problem before and he knows how to solve it, which is just keep presenting this until it's on. Why can't I, instead of holding this, jump deep for a second, hold that for a few seconds, right? Jump back under, apply more physical contact, maybe be closer, right? These are all things that I could be doing to get myself a little bit more edge when it comes to winning those matchups. Because if you just hold one, it's an easy problem for them to solve because good offenses know how to solve it. But if we can be switching, if we can be proactive in where we want to take our offensive cutter, then that's one way we can get a bit of an edge. 1% wins, right? And those 1% wins stack. Even like, if someone's not comfortable contact, like I don't know about you guys, but like when I play O and someone like even just touches me a bit, I already get a little bit like shaken off, a tiny bit, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe as a defense, we kind of want to see if we can, and within the confines of the spirit of the game and the rules, maybe we want to see if we can get them off their game a little bit. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Ooh.
I was going to talk about jumping the lane as well, but I think that's enough for today. In terms of if there's one thing that I want you guys to experiment this week, it's seeing if you guys can be less prescriptive about what I'm going to start off with and hold this, fronting stance, for example, because a lot of people say no unders, whatever. But see if we can, in a certain scenario, let's say the disc is here, you start under, right? Maybe the disc is getting checked in, then you flip it, right? Maybe the disc moves, then you flip it again. See if we can be proactive about our defense and see if we can apply that switcheroo to get those 1% wins, to get the offense off their game. All good? All right. There's my little rant for the week. Hope that was useful. You guys need to be taking your offense out of their plan A, take them into your realm, take them into the space where you as a defensive player are in control. And that's the only way we can play, right? In ultimate, offense is figured out. So as a defense, we need to see how we can get the edge.
Jujutsu Kaisen, realm expansion.
All right. 10:21. Now we enter the kind of Q&A period of the call. And then we got about half an hour for that. So happy to have questions relevant to kind of defensive IQ. But if you guys have more separate stuff, we can go through that as well. So I'll open up to you guys. And again, it's a pretty casual session. So if you guys have any questions that I can help you guys through, let's do that now.
I think the biggest thing for me, that because I have a team that a lot of the players are developing, especially on defense, is like trying to get them to, I guess it's like, especially the girls in our mixed group, because most girl cutters only cut, like that we're playing against, only cut in. And it's like I'm trying to get the players to understand that, hey, they only have one plan in mind, which is to cut under, and they're getting like the easy resets because it's like, how do I get players to understand, like, hey, they're having a predetermined cut, just like cut that off.
Yeah, I think love that. So this also is applicable in a general concept as well, right? It's the idea is certain teams and certain players have their plan A. You guys all probably have your favorite throw, don't you? or something that you're
Yeah.
like, oh, when that option comes up, I can take that 100% of the every single day of the week, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is when you face those teams and when you face those players, like for example, if I know big thrower's got the disc, right? It's like I know their plan A is just to throw this big floaty flat huck that fades into space. And so as a defense, I need to adjust and be like, okay, I know that's their plan A. I have to take it away because I'd rather them throw an under, even though it's a gainer, than for them to finish the point because I know it's such a superpower for them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in that situation, Mark, you got to go, all right, their plan A is for their ladies to get the unders.
Right.
Right. And so we want to take them out of plan A. We want to, even if it means that we sacrifice a few goals, it probably means that we still get those blocks every now and again because that's not their plan A. And so the one option is we're going to get scored on anyways because they're just going to get the disc and work it up the field. Or the other option is, can we try sacrifice a few easy goals? Yeah, maybe they will catch it in the end zone, but maybe 1 or 2 times we do get a block and maybe 1 or 2 times we do get a chance. And those are the odds that we kind of need to play or kind of want to play if we want a chance at winning. And so maybe one tool that you can say is like explaining that and being like, yeah, it's okay if they're catching the end zone. I just want you to stop the under. And as a team, that is kind of the game plan that you sign up to. And it's like if we're playing against a team that is going to be super solid, like throwers and super solid, in one area of the field or whatever, it's like, yes, we still might lose anyways, right? But at least we have a chance by taking them out of their plan A. It's like the opposite is if we just play it their way or let them stay in their comfort zone, then we don't have a chance at all. Good question, Mark. Does that kind of answer it?
Yep.
Yeah. And so like I think helping them acknowledge, the opposite is fine because that's our game plan. Yeah. And so often at Sunder we'll say, like we just want to front here and we just want to stop the unders because they're going into an upwind. And if it does go up, we're going to get bodies underneath it and someone will be able to help you. So everyone just stop your unders. And so it kind of relies on everyone to buy in on that game plan. And we're going to get hucked on sometimes. But the idea is when we do get under it and when the huck does go errand a little bit and it flows for a little bit too long, then we do find those chances to get those blocks to convert.
Yeah, those are so tough. I feel like, well, I'm just thinking, Mark, like, I totally understand where you're coming from, where sometimes it's like there's a certain like game plan that, or like a way that you'd like want your players to sort of, or even a plan that you want them to employ. And then it's just like getting them to recognize like what you're seeing or even what could be helpful. And I find that like even like you could be already doing this, but something I found pretty helpful is also like noticing the off ball move or off defense movement of like the little things that help develop to the turnover. So if it's somebody stopping that line or something, it's instead of praising the person who like got the D, it's going up to the person who stops the previous throw and being like, I want you to recognize that even though you didn't get the D per se, your defensive ability of stopping them from coming under was what helped develop like everything else, right? Because I feel like it's very easy to sort of celebrate the person who gets like the layout block or like the layout D, but like what things led up to that person getting that layout D? You know what I mean?
Let me take you through like a really shit example, which is like, let's say everyone is fronting, right? And so we might have like these people fronting. And this is the game plan, right? Let's say we're facing a big headwind. And so this is what we want. But the issue is if this person makes an error and this person gets in power position, then all of a sudden the game state is different. And this is all of a sudden within their range, right? And so it might suck as any of these players feeling like, oh, I should have backed more because they were still able to huck it deep of us. But the idea is if everyone is able to buy into that game plan and this person was able to stop that, then that's when there's actually no options at all. But if there is a gap and they're able to get this, then that's when it's not really any of these cutters' fault. They were just following the game plan. And so we do need to recognize that sometimes we're going to get unlucky and teams are going to burn us in certain areas, but we kind of need to take those odds.
Yeah, and like I said, like I told May in that, I guess that thread, like my goal is to start kind of being less of like taking more chances and like playing more like deny unders and like contested deeps and stuff like that. And so like I think that's where I'm at now is like because like as always for me it's always like okay I'm just gonna take away the deep, but like I want to start kind of like testing to see how much I can do. Like how much leeway I can give them deep that I can still contest it versus like and then just take away.
Yeah. And that's always the question that we're dealing with. It's like how much can we still deny and deny more?
Yep.
And then how much can we contest and contest more?
Yep.
And then all of our, from a defensive perspective, our footwork, our change of direction, our ability to lay out, right? That always expands how much we can deny, but also how much we can contest.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Have you guys watched this? I was trying to share screen. Have you guys watched this video by Rowan? Which is how USA beat Japan 15-4 in the World Championship.
I have not.
Can you guys kind of raise your hand if you've watched it? Okay, yeah, cool. Sweet. So this is like a little bit bonkers for your typical like new player. So the idea is if you haven't watched it, Team USA realized that Japan likes to throw continuation hucks from the break side of the field. And so Team USA was like, well, when Japan gets a break side throw and they're throwing from this spot and they throw great with edge when they have continuation, that was really high efficacy for them. And so Team USA decided, all right, let's stop them from getting these inside shots. Let's, as a downfield cohort, usher the offensive players this way. And you can see this is the arrow that kind of Rowan's drawing. Let's usher the players to the open side. And what ends up happening is instead of throwing the hucks from the break side, USA is forcing Japan to throw the hucks from the open side. And that's where they've stuck to the game plan. And if you watch the video, I'm not sure if I can, find it, but they end up getting blocks in the deep space because of that. And so I just play this clip, but you can see that defense-wise, they're letting them get to the open side. They're kind of forcing the open side huck, and then this is their game plan. It's like they're all still fronting. These guys are looking to help. The front of stack people are letting them go this way. And so they're like, come to our plan B, or like your plan B, right? Because this is plan A, right? For Japan. Let's go to plan B. Let's force you to throw into plan B, right? And let's get our athletes winning that matchup. And so this is kind of taking it to another level, which is like, it's super unconventional to think, I'm going to let my player go to the open side. But when you think about Japan as a team, their plan A is hitting the break side. And so taking them out of plan A is what gave USA not only the edge to win, but the edge to win dominantly. It was freaking 15-4. It wasn't even close, right? And so I think generally as ultimate players, we can think about taking a team, figuring out what their plan A is, taking a player, thinking about what their plan A is, and thinking how we can do all those 1% things to take them out of plan A. remove all the assumptions about how you think about the game, how you have to stop open side, how the force is there, or whatever it is. Remove all those assumptions, right? And purely think about how you can take an offensive player out of their realm and into yours. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend it. It's a good way to think about the game. All right. Got more time for questions. And again, it doesn't have to be necessarily defensive related or about this topic. I'm happy to talk about other things as well. I had a few questions this morning about kind of hucking and things like that, practice, and kind of how to approach practice and prioritization. So if you guys want to talk about that, we can as well.
I got a quick question.
Yeah, please. Wilson.
Last practice, I was guarding front of stack, and the guy that was in the stack is extremely fast. I'm not that fast. But the guy that had the disc not always, he was very good at inside shots. And I didn't know which way to go, which way to guard. Do I need to, because like in front of stack, it's like, okay, you need to look for the inside as well as guarding your man. And I know my guy is extremely fast and very, high agility. Where should I stand, and what should I be looking for?
Yeah. And it's a tough one, right? Because especially at the front of stack, it's like, well, if I'm here, right, and you're saying you're in this scenario, right? Disc is here. We have you're this red player, yeah. It's a tough one because the responsibility of stopping this player is on two people. It's on you, but who else is responsible?
Handler, or like the defense handler.
Yeah, the mark. Yeah. And so, first of all, and this is something that is preached a lot, well, not enough actually, but should be preached more, is recognition of what the force is. And so the difference between a more inside force and a more around force is huge. Because this is going to mean, if they're forcing like this, it means that this is so on. Make sense? And so step one is recognizing, all right, what's the force actually doing? In other words, are they inside enough for me? Like if they're flat, right, then you can probably come out a little bit more, right? And the around's going to be slower. If they're inside, you probably need to start getting a little bit closer to something that inside. And so number one is working out with the force, what are they actually stopping? Now, here comes a question, right? When you're in the middle of the field, the force is usually, I want to say neutral, like this. And so there's always going to be this risk of it inside, especially if you have a good thrower. Like if you're against me, I'm going to throw that high release. And that's like a throw I like. And so I like to throw it out into space like here. And so if you realize that this is kind of that thrower's plan A, we do want to try and pressure that more. So it means not always standing on the same side, then seeing if we can kind of bring it a little bit more neutral. And if you like in the case of Team US, like they were standing here, which is like letting them go there. And I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying we probably need to start experimenting with the buffer. If this is just you're getting wrecked on this every single time, then maybe it's like we need to start playing this a little bit flatter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Or you like the other thing is like tell the mark to stop the inside. Because if the mark, if they know that this person is like has a really good inside flick, then just stop that. If that's their favorite throw, we want to stop that. And so if they have to throw the slow around, it probably gives you more time to catch up anyways, right?
Thank you.
That's my 2 cents. Think about what the thrower wants. Think about what your player wants. Take them out of plan A. And the other thing is like you can apply the switcheroo as well. Like if this player is checking it in from a brick, right? Why don't you start on this break side, last second switch to open, or start on this open side, last second switch to break, and then come back into the middle, right? Or be on the back shoulder or the front shoulder, right? So he can't see you, and so when he cuts here, you're faster than him on the kind of outside shoulder. Those are all things to experiment and try. But the idea comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which is what is your player's plan A and how can we take them out? And there's no right answer. Yeah. Just try it. So like the one option is that we lose anyways, because that's their plan A. And the other option is we'll probably lose still, but we'll lose less. And we'll get more chances to get a block. And there might be some miscommunication. We might be able to generate something, right? I think that's the way that we should think about it. Is like, even if we lost trying something different that's going to take someone off their game, that's not inherently a bad thing, because on the 5th attempt, 6th attempt, 10th attempt, that's probably when the block will come.
Gotcha.
Cool. Any other questions? Great question, Wilson.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, hopping on top of, or like, I really like Wilson's question. It kind of makes me think about like, okay, will there ever be a scenario? And it gets me thinking about hip, or like hip positioning. So whether or not there would there be circumstances where your hip would be actually opened up so that you could actually see, you know, I would find like see the disc and the player at the same time, or would there be, I feel like most scenarios you're kind of like, you're generally would be face guarding at this point at the front of the stack. But I wonder, it's like if there are certain scenarios where
I like that.
you are actually flipping your hip. It's kind of tough to like show on a board, but it's that idea
I
that
can show you what I do.
yeah, it's
Go ahead.
the idea like what if there's a scenario where you actually would be, your hip would be opened up so that you can both see the disc and your player and be touching them. So
Yeah.
then you can sort of see, you can even like predict what might be what the handler is looking for.
I can show you what I'll do.
Yeah.
Right. And so the idea is disc is here. And we have let's say I'm marking the second player actually. And so imagine we're in a state of flow where this player has gone up the line, hasn't got it, right? And this player has filled, and I'm defending the new one. Make sense? And so usually we kind of start, I kind of like starting in this backing position because I can see the rest of the field. I can see where I can help, right? If they're throwing this leading pass out into space, I can maybe try to go get that. But the idea is, as this person gets into a more threatening position, I actually like to start backing. And then as this person starts thinking about kind of being that next fill option, I apply that switcheroo. And this is kind of a more common and consistent way that I apply this. Is like when I realize that, okay, they think that I'm backing them, therefore they can get the easy fill. That's when I really, really work hard to do a quick shuffle and go, whoop. And then all of a sudden, it's a one-on-one into this space because they weren't even thinking about attacking that space. They weren't even thinking about attacking that space. They were like, oh, this guy's backing, right? I'm the new one. He's not ready for me to fill. And I go, boom. And then he goes, oh, fuck, I have to beat him here. I need to beat him in some way here. And so all of a sudden, it's just me versus you. I know where you're trying to go because I baited you into thinking that. It's like mentalism, you know, Magic. It's like, oh, this is your card, right? And so I'm saying, this is your card. This is the realm that we're going to play. This is the area of the field that I want you to play in because I baited you into thinking that. And so now we're going to start working, and I'm going to really try to win this fill kind of movement. So they might try to go one shoulder and the other shoulder, but the idea is you've already won the battle because you're in the right spot. And at that point in the store, it's hard for them to try to go for something else. There's help everywhere else on the field, right? And so they're going to try attack you here, and you're going to be ready for it. That's one way I like to do it, is like when I'm in the stack, I kind of like to back and I kind of like to pivot around and kind of play with the switcheroo concept in terms of like the buffer that I'm applying. And so sometimes I'll be open, sometimes I'll face mark, sometimes I'll backstretch completely. And then once they get into a threatening space where I know the fill is the threatening area of the field, that's when I completely double down, stopping that. But up to that point, I can see everything else. And up to that point, I can help on anything else. And that's where I often get a lot of blocks, like just kind of like seeing that or whatever, or like peeling them.
Yeah.
That's one way. It's like if I know my player's inactive, it's like I like to see the rest of the field. And then when they become threatening, let me just double down on what I know they want, which is this fill. And so at that point, You know the game that they want. You're trying to stop their plan A. Does that make sense? I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think I'm currently just like, well, personally, I'm still playing around with the with how to position your body in the best way that would put me in the more advantageous spot where I could be ready, like in a position where I'm more ready and ready to sprint, or more ready to speed up. You know.
Yeah, you're right.
But
and all those fundamentals still apply, right? Athletic position, and like step one in that whole spiel that I was talking about is identifying where the risk space is. And so we really do want to find out, okay, at this point where the disc is on the field, where is the risk space? And then how can we do everything in our positioning, in our preparation to prevent that?
Kind of adding on to that.
Yeah, please, Cheetah, yeah.
Something I've been like also playing around with is how much space I give the person I'm marking. Because usually I'll play like pretty physically, like I'll play like directly on them. But I've also found that in doing that, especially against players that are like just naturally a little bit more athletic than I am, is that they can sometimes just like blow past me or like blow past like my like inactive shoulder. And so like that leads me to like, okay, I want to give them more space, but like the more space I give them, I'm giving myself like I'm giving them already when they have like an athletic advantage, like more space to work. And so I've been trying to like figure out how to mitigate that.
Yeah. So I think it's a great problem to have in terms of like all the things that you're thinking about are exactly what we should be thinking about as a defense, right? Like how much buffer am I giving? What does the offensive player want? How can I take them out of their comfort zone? Right. And so I think the answer is less black and white in terms of should I be close or should I be far or should I be somewhere in the middle or should I be switching between the two? If you're playing against a player that likes that close contact and feels like they can blow by you easily, then you probably want to take a step back, right? If you're playing against a player that doesn't like that contact, then you probably want to take a step towards. And so at the very micro level, it's figuring out in this particular matchup, what someone likes, what someone doesn't like, what someone's comfortable with, and how you can take them out of that comfort zone. And then there's great players who don't care and will just beat you regardless. And fair enough, they're good players, and so they can do that. But we can see if we can take them slightly out of the comfort zone through 1%ers. So that's when I would encourage you to go, all right, this player is really good. Like I was marking, as I was saying, I was marking those dingoes and they're tough to mark. And so I could probably do some combination of being close, but then being far, but then being close again to take them off their game. And obviously, you're not going to win every battle. But if you can even win one in the game, that might have been the moment that caused you to win on Universe, for example. The idea is a game of Ultimate is made of many small moments, and really you just need a few small wins in those moments to make a difference in that game. Great question. It's a great way to kind of think about, buffers and how you can play certain matchups. But I think if you can quickly find out in a point what your player likes and what they don't like, and then once you figure it out, just do that. That will set you up for success for sure.
Cool. And then real quick, because it seems like a lot of these points like kind of like centralize around like really quick analysis of like your opponent and like their main plans. So, and like the actual like analysis part of it, do you feel like just true trial and error is like a good way of trying to analyze what they want and what they're comfortable with? Or you like just like I don't know, if there's like a different way that you analyze or like what your analysis process is.
Yeah, that's a great question. Trial and error is one way, but it's not the most effective way because you actually need to be in the point that matters, right? So I would say the fastest way or the most preemptive way is to watch how they play. or like you can even watch them during the warm up, or if you know there's a certain player or if there's some film, just watch them for a point and see the cuts they like to make, see the way that they like to make their cuts. And so you know what's real and what's fake when you match up. And so, for example, there's a player, Sam McGuckin, who is kind of Australia's, one of Australia's top cutter receiver types. And you watch a lot of his cutting film, and you'll notice that he really likes his just kind of head fake and then kind of shoulder cut, and then he just goes to the opposite. So if I can see in the film that that's something he likes, then come game time, I know that if he goes for this sort of half shoulder movement, half head fake, then I know that could be a fake. Of course, he could just go deep, but I know I'm ready for him to come back and come under. The same way that I play against Alex Gann a lot, who, is World Games Australian handler. He really likes this squirrely up the line cut where he kind of takes a jab towards your outside shoulder, and then comes back in, squirrels for the inside shoulder. You probably see a lot of like squirrely handlers do that sort of stuff. And that's the cut I like as well. But having played against that and having seen him do that, it's like, okay, cool. I know he's probably going to go for that. Let me be ready to put my body in the way when he does go for that. So to answer your question, number one, watch them, right? Find out what they like, because everyone probably has a favorite cut or a favorite throw, and that's going to be their plan A. So that's when we can kind of be ready for it when it comes to in-game. And then step two is, trial and error. Like, as much as we can watch and we can anticipate and expect things, sometimes we do just need to get into the nitty-gritty of the game to figure out, in terms of our positioning, what works and what doesn't. Did that help?
Yes, I think so.
Cool. We'll probably have time for one more question, and then we can have some faff time. Less formal chat shit. Sounds good?
I
Mark,
have one more question.
claiming the final question.
Yeah. So what do you guys do whenever, because I was with Rowan doing the rowing class this past Wednesday, and we were talking like gravity, like how like certain players have high gravity, which means that they have like they're more involved in the play, they have a higher chance to get the disc versus low gravity. So like a lot of times when I play players, they'll just like take themselves out of the play because they don't want to, they don't want me being involved in the defense. And like, how do you guys still be involved in the defense while also like respecting that they can like turn on the jets and move and get the disc? Because like I'll have players who will just play just way out of the play, and then I have to respect them. But then like it takes me out of the defensive play as well, right? So balancing the low gravity and like the high gravity of the offense.
Yeah. Well, first of all, kudos to the team that you're playing against, because they've taken your team out of their plan A, which is you, Mark. I'd love to hear the opinions of the floor. Does anyone have any thoughts on, let's say like you really want to, make a defensive impact on this point, but your player is just bloody in the end zone. You know what I mean? And so that sounds to me like that's kind of the scenario you're facing, Mark. So any opinions from the floor? Yeah.
I mean, immediately I thought of, if I was like the guy you're guarding was a handler, I'd probably step back, sync with the disc, trying to go with him, look, and still having an eye on your defender, making sure he's not going to do anything. And as soon as he, jab cuts something, maybe fall a little bit back, and make sure you're still on the double team. As well as I thought, if it's like a cutter or something, maybe trying to switch really fast, depending on like the hot zones and all that, and the timing, doing a quick switch, kind of like the switcheroo we were just talking about, to throw them off and trying to get people back in.
I like that idea. I never thought about maybe getting yourself back into a play by taking a switch. That's really good. All right, Cheetah, we'll see you in the next one. Any other opinions? Matt, Noah?
I've got some thoughts, but I want to make sure if Noah had any, he had some time on the floor as well.
I don't have any thoughts on this one, no.
Okay. Yeah, actually it's really interesting concept, or an interesting thing about like high gravity and low gravity players, because I even think like I think DC does it really well, where they actually will intentionally put certain players out of the play, so then it's only like so it's only 6v6, right? Where there's so much more space, and it's like, okay, what does that defender even really do at that point? Part of what like I've been thinking about a little bit, and even like when we talk about where the disc is on the field, and even like game plans for certain teams, is I guess for me, it depends on like where the disc is on the field, and that kind of tells me how active I might have to be on my person, and then maybe how much more leeway I can to possibly go out and help. If it's a crossfield shot and like, it's a crossfield shot and it's like half the field or whatever, then I'm willing to maybe take my chances of possibly peeling out just a little bit more, as opposed to the disc gets onto the into the power position, and my guy is streaking down, and like my guy has an opportunity to streak down. So depending on where the flow is of where the disc is, will influence like how much respect, or even like how far I might be playing, and playing within the confines of like, and even knowing they're a team. Like there's probably going to be certain handlers who like to shoot it deep, and it's like, or hit those shots, and it's like, okay, when that player has it, I might not have the leeway to be able to be as involved as I would like to be in the play. But then let's say there's somebody like maybe a person with a disc that isn't as great of a thrower. I can afford to be a little bit more. I can afford to poach off and afford to like maybe muck up the space, because maybe their primary handler is really trying to get the disc. And I'm just saying, okay, I'm not going to let that happen. That's what at least those are my initial thoughts.
That's a great point. I think I might just add 2 points there, Matt, as well.
Yeah.
It's like, number one, everything that Matt said, perfect. Like that's how I'd be thinking about it as well. If I'm trying to be kept out of the play, I'm thinking, all right, weak thrower has a disc, I can be more active. Strong thrower has a disc, I gotta be closer. One thing that I've found doing that is that the game state can change instantly. It's like I might be helping, and because the weak thrower has a disc, all of a sudden they swung the disc to a strong thrower, or the strong thrower's got the disc in power position, and it's like, oh, I'm out of position, and that's a free huck. So that's one way that the offense can take advantage of that positioning. I'm not saying don't go for it. I'm saying be ready to adjust. The second thing is another thing that you can do as well as what Matt's talking about, which is figure out where you are on the field and where they are trying to keep you. And then figure out where your proximity is that you can help. And so if someone's trying to keep you out in the deep space, right, you are actually naturally already able to help in everything in the deep space. So if that is the case, you need to communicate to all your teammates to just stop the unders. Because naturally, if something goes up, you're already in a position to help. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you're going to be, left in some random spot on the field on the far break side. But that's maybe when you say, everyone, like, stop the open side, or just stop the open under, or just stop the open side huck, or whatever it is, right? Because you're actually there on the break side. So I think the communication aspect is like, how can I actually leverage where they're trying to keep me as a tool in the defensive system that everyone else can consider, and they can adjust their positioning so that they get a win in their matchup because you naturally can help them. Cool?
Yep, that makes sense.
All right. I think that's a pretty good wrap on our first Q&A, and I hope that was valuable. And the idea is, on my cameras, my lights just shut off. But the idea is, of these sessions, I really want to deliver something that's high value, high impact, that you guys can apply in your games this week to make a bigger impact. And so today's focus, just to wrap it up, defensive IQ. We're going to see where we can find out what the offensive players' plan A is, and then take them out of their plan A into our realm, into plan B. The way we're going to do that is figure out 1% wins right? If they don't like touch, if they don't like us to hold a buffer, right? See if we can get those 1% wins to get that edge. See if we can switcheroo. See if we can apply that little tactical shift so that they're in a position, or we're in a position that they don't expect, right? And then some great comments on how we can kind of take advantage if the defense is playing towards our plan B. How can we still make an impact, right? Or if the offense is keeping us out of the play, how can we still make an impact from a defensive perspective? Cool. I'm going to turn off the recording now, and then we're going to have 5 minutes of FAF time, and we can chat shit. Sound good?
Yeah,
all right.
good.
So easy.
Nice.
All right,
Dude, so Wilson, you're in Nashville, eh?
Yeah, Nashville.